President, it is an honor to be in your presence. My name is Stephen Hobeck, and I'm from Arizona. And for every great man that I've ever met, and those who have given their service and their time to help their country and fellow humans, I've always asked them a basic and simple question, and that was, what was their key to success? How did they climb the ladder to success and achieve the goals that they wanted to achieve in their life?
I wish I had a good, crisp answer for that. I think for one thing, you follow your dream. The thing that I was, maybe I can tell it with an incident. When I was back your age, I had a summer job lifeguarding at a river beach. And people would come out from the nearby city of Chicago with their families and stay at a lodge there in this park. And I was the only lifeguard, and I taught their kids to swim and all. And it was then the Great Depression came, and I was still in school and still doing this in summers. And some of these men had told me, they were successful men, and they'd said, when you get out of school, why, you come see me. I think I could do something for you and all. And finally, it was out of school. And I had to go back and lifeguard the summer after I graduated, get enough money to try and find a job someplace. And one of those men, a lot of them were no longer coming there. They were victims of the Great Crash also. But there's one told me that, yes, he thought there were several lines in which he could help me get a job, start a career. But he said, you're going to have to tell me what you want to do. And he said, someplace there'll be somebody. Well, I went home and, believe it or not, after getting out of college, and my degree was in economics, really was in extracurricular activities, but I sat down. I hadn't thought about much what he said. But finally, I just realized that I wanted the world of entertainment some way. And I thought, you know, back in those days in a little town in Illinois, you didn't say, I want to be an actor. They'd throw a net over you. So I said, I thought to myself, radio is the great new thing of that day. Just in a few short years, it had become the greatest entertainment thing in America. And having been in athletics and everything, I decided I'd like to be a sports announcer. And I thought that would be a beginning, a step into the world of entertainment. So I went back to him and told him. And he said, well, I don't know anyone in that business. There isn't any way I can help you there. But he said, maybe that's best. He said, because if I helped and got you a job, as I could in several other lines of activity, he said the favor they would be doing would be to him, not me. And he said, just having given you the job, they'd think they'd done their part and they'd have no more interest in how you progressed. He said, look, someplace out there, there's got to be somebody that knows this industry has a future, radio, and knows that you have to have young people come into that business if it's going to flourish and continue. And he said, someplace, and he said, remember, a salesman may have to make 200 calls before he makes a sale. So keep trying. And he said, just tell them, don't tell them you want to be a sports announcer. He said, just tell them you believe in radio, you want to get a job in radio, and you take your chances on where you go in radio from then on. And I did. I started. And it turned out to be the greatest advice I've ever had. I hitchhiked my way all around the Midwest, getting turned downs, but keep on going. Never mentioned sports. That was the only place he was wrong. Because finally in Davenport, Iowa, WOC, a wonderful old man, a program director there, Peter MacArthur, still with the Scotch burr in his voice. And asked me, he says, where have you been for the last few? He says, we've just had auditions for 90 people for announcers and hired one. Well, I didn't dare tell him that I'd been out hitchhiking and hadn't been listening to radio. And on the way out, though, after all the turndowns, I said to myself, how do you get to be a sports announcer if you can't get a job in a radio station? And I went down to the elevator, around the corner to the elevator, and while I was waiting for it to come to that floor, I heard this thumping. He was arthritic, and he had 2 canes on the floor. And he was muttering, hey, wait up. And so I looked and I waited for him. Thank heaven the elevator hadn't been there, because he said, what was that you said about sports announcing? And I said, well, that's what I'd like to be. And he said, do you know anything about football? And I said, I played it for 8 years. He said, do you think you could tell me about a football game if I wasn't seeing it, and make me see that game if I was sitting at home listening? I said, I think so. never tried it. And he said, took me into a studio, and he put me in front of a microphone. He said, when that red light goes on, you start broadcasting an imaginary football game. And he said, I'll be in another room listening. You won't see me. Well, there I stood, waiting for the light to go on, and I thought, oh, I'm not going to start with the first quarter. And I remembered a game the season before that we won in the last 20 seconds with a 65-yard run for a touchdown on an off-tackle play. And so when the lights came on, having listened to a lot of Ted Husings and Graham McNamee's and so forth, I said, here we are late in the fourth quarter of this game. I said, the long blue shadows settling over the field and a cold wind coming in through the end of the stadium. We didn't have a stadium, we only had bleachers. And so I took us and all the way up now to that last 20 seconds, and then the touchdown, the winning touchdown. And then I said, that's all. It had taken about 15 minutes to do this. But there was one thing that I also put in there in that broadcast. I was a right guard, and in that era, the guards ran interference. Most plays, you came back out of the line and led the interference, and on this particular play, my job was to get the first man in the secondary. I missed him. I never have known how Bud Cole made the touchdown, because I missed that key block. But in the broadcast, that was the first replay, I nailed him with a block that you could have. Oh, I know, they're telling me, you shouldn't have got me into an old story like that. I used up can I take one more?
Time for one more.
Well, there, right there in the aisle.
Mr. President, I'm Scott Armstrong from Syracuse, New York. Perhaps besides the Republican Party, the Boy Scouts of America has done so much to shape my life. Prior to your administration, we saw a massive drop in the scouting movement. And I was wondering if you would just give me the scout handshake with your left hand so I can congratulate you for instilling the patriotism that has given the great rise to the scouting movement in the last 6 years.
Well, now, I never had the opportunity to be a scout, but I know that I am the honorary head of the Scouts. I'm down here, but I'll have to take my cue from you because they didn't tell me about this.
Thank you very much.
They want me to step down there while they get a picture with all of you surrounding.
Just really quick, and the president does have to go very quick. Everybody wave! Everybody wave!
Feel the 22nd.
I'm gonna get all sorts of trouble. Thank you, come again.
Let me. So let me tell you, one more. I presumed on you in answering that question, but the question was very real also about where you go and all of that. And let me just tell you another one, and a thing that I never had intended to be in public life at all. And then I made a speech for Barry Goldwater in 1964, and I was literally dragged kicking and screaming into campaigning. But I was also very fearful about something of that kind when I became governor of California. And remember this because many of you may consider public life and all. I finally found peace and quiet for myself and could sleep at night when I decided that the only way to go was whenever there was a decision to be made. And I ordered my cabinet, and I ordered the cabinet here, don't tell me any of the political ramifications of that question. Just tell me what you see as good and bad in that particular thing. And the decision will be made on the basis of what is good for the people of this country, and in that case, of the state. And I found that I do sleep very well, and we don't say, let's do this because it's politically advantageous. Do what you believe in.